No. Okay. Okay, so the point of that sort of exercise was, yes, we're focusing on writing learning outcomes today, but also just kind of want you to think about, you don't always have to say what the learning outcomes are at the outset. Sometimes you let students identify them for themselves, and that can be quite rewarding. Just thinking about writing our learning outcomes, at the moment we're sort of focusing on the individual teaching activity, and then before lunch you were thinking about what you're doing in each learning environment with your students and what outcomes that's going to produce.
Shame on you guys.
So it's important, although you won't put in your course documentation that kind of granular level of learning outcomes, the granular level that we just explored there in that task, it's important that they can map up to what you're trying to do in the module. So we had an example over there where they were showing me their module learning outcomes, and they couldn't quite see where they align to when you sort of talk about what students are actually doing in any one learning environment. But although you still need to be able to map them across, yeah? And they need, from your module, they need to obviously map into what's happening across your course, with your course teams, your program, and then potentially graduate attributes, which we'll come to at the end of this afternoon session. So it's important to think about the activity that you're doing in the class and what learning outcome that's developing on a kind of micro, granular scale, but that has to fit into the bigger picture, yeah? Okay. The other thing that I just want you to remember is this idea that we know what drives learning is assessment. So this is the third element of our constructive alignment, so how we're going to assess those. So I'm not going to focus on that today, but I just want you to hold that in the back of your mind, that anything that we decide is a learning outcome has to be assessed at the end of the day. So just revisiting what intended learning outcomes should do, what students are expected to be able to do after a piece of learning, okay? They have to be expressed as a verb, okay, so it's about action, what they're actually doing. And those verbs have to be related to the level of the program. So when we had our Bloom's taxonomy, we know that, the lower levels, we expect to map to our lower levels of our degree programs. By the time they get to the final year, we expect to see that kind of analysis of creativity. That doesn't mean to say that you can't have any creativity in the first year, it's just the emphasis, okay? So we know about some learning taxonomies. Bloom's taxonomy we've looked at already this morning. We did look at that last module, I didn't we? Bloom's taxonomy. I kind of had this kind of fear that I just left that out somewhere along the line. It's best if they're expressed from a student's perspective. Now, you'll see them written in different ways, but if you're writing them for the student, for them to be able to choose a module, then it's best, at the end of this piece of learning, you will be able to do this. Okay, so they kind of give them that empowerment. Need to be related to assessment tasks and assessment criteria, and then the bit we were talking about this morning, your activities must align with your learning outcomes. So we did this activity last time, didn't we, where you mapped your verbs on the taxonomy, yes? Did we do that? We had these charts, yes? Yes. Okay, so I kind of just want to go a little bit more deeply into that. So the first part you'll just be redoing, but I just want each of you in your groups, maybe work in groups of 4 or 5, to very quickly put your verbs on here that come out of your learning outcome, okay? And then as a group, think about this next stage, which is the environment that's going to help develop that, okay? So we're going to really critically analyse your learning outcomes. So I know we mapped them last time when we looked at the verbs, but I kind of want you to think about the whole structure of those. So if you've got access to one of your syllabus or your module handouts, that's going to be useful. So write down each of your learning outcomes. If you need to revisit those verbs, so the one I looked at over there, the verbs might need a little bit of refining, so they were sort of, students will understand this, okay? understand probably needs to be broken down a little bit more into students will be able to compare this and this, students will be able to demonstrate X, Y, and Z. Okay? So just have a think about that, map those onto here. Okay? In your groups, review, just take in terms of one learning outcome that you've written down that perhaps you're not happy with. Ask your colleagues what they think of it. Is there a better way of writing it? Okay? And then think about, is it appropriate for the level of the module? Okay? So we're just going in a little bit more granular detail than we did last in Module 1. So is it suitable for a first year? Is it suitable for a second year? Final year? Okay? Does it provide a clear idea about what the module will involve? Okay? Is it realistic? And why have you got that as a learning outcome? So really trying to critique your own practice now. So you can just go around in your groups and take a learning outcome each get an opportunity to really critique what you've written. Okay? In terms of the language, the level, does it help students make a choice about why they want to be doing that module? Do you have choices? Is it realistic? You know, or are you saying at the end of this module, the students are going to be able to, you know, design a brand new building, whatever. You know, is it realistic? Are they actually going to be able to achieve that? You know, or okay. So once you critique them, the second part of the task then is to think about what teaching approaches you're going to use to deliver that. Okay? So I want you to use these charts within your group. So each of you put a learning outcome down the left-hand side, critique them as a group, and then in the middle section, what teaching method will be used to deliver that. Yeah? Okay? So you might want to spin all your tables around so you can put these down. I'm not sure how we're going to do this on that table. Create a group area.
Benim yanımda bir ağır kapı şeyi var. Silgisel formu.
Move on to the last part today. What I want you to think about, first of all, completing this activity, okay? Within the virtual learning environment, I've put a form for you to capture this information, okay? So I'll just bring that up now.
Have you also uploaded this presentation there?
It'll be there tonight. Okay. So within the virtual learning environment, I've put another form. Okay, can you pay attention, please? It's called Designing and Planning a Learning Activities. And you'll see in there the same questions that you've been asked today. Write down learning outcomes from a course that you either deliver or you're familiar with, okay? So write down all those learning outcomes, critique them based on the feedback you've had from your groups, review each learning outcome. Is it appropriate for the level of the module? Are you using the right language? So there's just a number of questions there to prompt you to have the same kind of, just to really capture these conversations so that they're not all lost, okay? And as before, once you put things in the form, that automatically gets saved to your e-portfolio. So I know I've been listening into some really interesting conversations about this where people looking at their learning outcomes and realising they're not terribly informative. So at the end of this course, students will learn A, B, C and D. You know, they're not really helpful. Other groups have a lot of learning outcomes just related to knowledge, and the lower ones are not really looking at the applying and the creativity. So this form just allows you to capture all of that, okay? So thinking about your learning outcomes in terms of are they at the right level, is the language appropriate for your students to understand, and can you refine them a little bit in order to make them more useful for you and useful for your students. So I've handed you a couple of pieces of post-it notes. Before we move on from this, I want you to think of one learning outcome that you have achieved today. Okay? One learning outcome that you personally have achieved today, and think about what part of the learning environment, the mode of teaching, the mode of delivery helped you learn that. Okay? So you might think, right, I've understood what a learning outcome is, and the way I've learned that is by analysing the learning outcomes from my course. Okay, so that was the learning outcome, and then what you did to help you understand it. Okay, so on, let's say on the pink piece of paper, write the learning outcome that you personally felt that you have developed today, and then think about what part of the teaching or learning environment helped you develop that. Okay, is that clear? Yeah? Yes? No? Okay, so when you leave, I want you to stick them on the board here. So stick the learning outcome on the first left-hand column and the teaching environment in the middle column. Okay, so you just write them down now, or think about them while we go into the next session, and add them to the board when you leave. Okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I've given you quite a lot of tasks to do at home. So I just kind of want to highlight this idea of graduate attributes because I know my understanding is that they aren't used currently at Baken, but it's certainly something that's becoming more predominant across the HE sector. And certainly if you go to other institutions in different countries, you might start to see these. So I think it's worth exploring them because even if they're not articulated specifically for this university, I still think it kind of informs the wider view of what it is that you're trying to teach. So this is the HEA's definition, which I kind of don't really like, but anyway. But they tend to be a policy statement created by each individual university. So each individual university will come up with their ideas of what their attributes their students should have. Okay? And they detail perhaps the qualities, personal qualities and skills that university believes that their graduates should develop, okay, during the course of their study. And it might not just be part of the core curriculum, it might be part of the wider environment, the other extracurricular opportunities that are offered to students during their study. They're different from like the kind of program learning outcomes, which may be kind of much more specific to a course, and they become a little bit more generic. So all graduates in the university should have the opportunity to achieve them. Okay, they tend to include things like personal, professional skills, social responsibility, global citizenship, digital capabilities, those kind of wider attributes. So I've just brought up a couple here from two UK universities, so Glasgow universities. They're not actually their attributes, but they're kind of rationale for developing their attributes. So it goes beyond disciplinary expertise or technical knowledge. They're the qualities that prepare graduates to become, or for social good in an unknown future. So it's that idea of we don't know what jobs our students are going to be going into. And it's one of the things we'll look at on Thursday. What do jobs look like in 2030, 2040, 2050? You know, by the time our graduates retire, we've not really any concept of what sort of jobs they'll be doing. So how do we prepare them for that kind of future world? Imperial College is one of the sort of top universities in the UK, and you can see here that they're very much focusing on their graduates as problem solvers, generating ideas, communication, collaboration. So they're that kind of wider skills that a graduate should possess. Okay. So what I want you to think about for tomorrow, and this is the last class of the day, we're going to finish half an hour early, which is wonderful. I want you all to come up with one graduate attribute that you think is really important. So just think of one thing that you think your graduate should be able to achieve. That's not discipline specific, it's more wider than that. Okay? So just have a think about that for tomorrow and come with those ideas.
Is it in general or specific?
No, it's general. A general thing that every graduate from Baken University should be able to do. Whether they're doing dentistry, whether they're doing creative writing, whether they're doing marketing, whether they're an engineer. What one quality should they all possess? And hopefully we'll get a lovely list tomorrow. Huh? Okay, so everybody understand what we've got to do for tomorrow in terms of graduate attributes, yeah? So just come up with one individual thing that you think that your graduates should have, okay?
Is this an online homework or?
No, just bring it along on a piece of paper. So in terms of tasks that we're going to finish for today, number one, put your pink and yellow slips up onto this sheet, okay? If you also want to give me some feedback on about how you feel after day one, I always think it's quite nice to see how you go downhill.